begin by reviewing how to distribute combined like terms, FOIL to distribute, and with the greatest common factor. The first example we're going to do is 3x times the quantity x squared plus x minus 2. As a reminder, you learned in Algebra 1 and in middle school math that 3x means we multiply each of the given values by 3x. The first problem, I'll go ahead and write it out so you can see it. It's 3x times x squared plus 3x times x plus 3x times negative 2. So 3x times x squared is 3x cubed. 3x times x is 3x squared. And 3x times negative 2 is negative 6x. Notice I didn't put plus a negative 6x, I just put minus 6x. Now we call this standard form because the biggest degree or power goes first. We have an x to the third followed by an x squared by a constant. You always want to list them in standard form. Example 2 looks a little more tricky. We're going to combine both adding and distributing. Now if you look at this problem, I have two sets of problems here. I have the problem on the left, 4x times the quantity x plus 5, and then I have the problem 3 times the 2x minus 2, and they are joined by an addition sign. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and distribute. So 4x times x is 4x squared. 4x times a positive 5 is a positive 20x. Notice I put an addition sign to represent that it's positive. Now whenever you do this, you want to distribute the sign. So we have a positive 3 times 2x, which is 6x. And we have a positive 3 times a negative 2, which is negative 6. Now my last step is going to be to combine like terms. So in order to do this, I find my biggest power degree, which is an x squared. And I list that first. So this 4x squared lists first. After x squared, we list any x's. So if I look here, without using inverses, it says 20x plus 6x, which is 26x when combining like terms. My last one is a minus 6, which doesn't have any, so we leave that constant there. So this is my final answer when I simplify it. Now we're going to go a little bit trickier. Just like before, if you look at this problem, we have something multiplied by a quantity. Then we have another something multiplied by a quantity. So I'm going to do the left part of the problem first. 3x squared times another x is 3x cubed. 3x squared times an 8 is 24, but do you see that's a minus? So it's going to be a negative 24x squared. The x squared tags along. Now when you do the 4, realize it's a minus 4. So some of you, it might be helpful to change it to plus a negative 4. So we're going to distribute a negative 4 through so we don't forget the negative. Negative 4 times x squared is negative 4x squared. Negative 4 times 5x is a negative 20x. And a negative 4 times a negative 6 is a positive 24. Now I'm not quite done with this math problem because I need to combine like terms. So first thing I do is I look for my largest degree, which is an 3x to the third. And I don't have any other x cubes, so I'm going to list that first. Following the x cubed becomes the x squared, and we're going to combine like terms. Negative 24x squared minus 4 more x squared is negative 28x squared. Okay, we've done x cubed, x squared, so now any x's we have, which is negative 20x. And then lastly, any constants we have, which is positive 24. Now I cannot combine those because none of my x's are to the same degree or power. And 24 doesn't even have a variable with it. So the answer is 3x cubed minus 28x squared minus 20x plus 24. Example 4 introduces a new idea. Well, not so new. In middle school, you learned about, or Algebra 1, you learned about FOIL. FOIL represents an acronym that stands for what order we do things in. To FOIL, it's distributing. So what we do is we do first times the first. Then we multiply the outside number. Then we multiply insides, or the inside numbers. And then we do the last. So last times your last. First, outers, inners, last. That's kind of how I do this. Now some of you may, depending on who your teacher was, may make some sort of little monkey face when you're doing this. So I'm going to kind of go through. My two quantities are 5x minus 8 and 3x plus 7. I know I FOIL and I don't just add like terms because there's no sign in between the two sets of parentheses. So I'm going to do first times first. So I'm going to take 5x times 3x, which is 15x squared. Then I'm going to do the outsides. 5x, positive 5x, times a positive 7, which is a positive 35x. Now I'm going to do the insides. Negative 8 times 3x is a negative 24x. And lastly, I do last times last. Negative 8 times 7, which is negative 56. Now I'm not quite done yet because I got to combine any variables that are to the exact same power. So first I look and I say, oh, I have a 15x squared. Do I have any other x squareds? No, I do not, so I list that first, 15x squared. Then I list my x's. I have 35x's minus 24. Noticing I did not change the sign there. On the same side, we're just simplifying, so we use the sign it has. This yields 11x. And lastly is my constant, which is a negative 56. If I had any other integers, I would add them to it as well. So that's the basic process of how to FOIL. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do the same process. I'm going to FOIL and multiply by a negative 3. Now you could do this one of two ways, and I'll kind of do them both ways so you can see. Okay, say I don't know what I'm doing and I just automatically distribute the negative 3 through. Well, be careful because this says negative 3 times a quantity times another quantity. So you don't multiply both quantities by the negative 3. If
Teachers, please dismiss the wrestlers who are going to Spring Hill at this time.
So you're going to take negative 3 times x and then negative 3 times negative 2, which is negative 3x plus 6. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take it and you're going to bring down that second set of parentheses and do nothing to it. Now at this point, then we would FOIL. First times first. Negative 3x times 4x is negative 12x squared. Then we do outsides. Negative 3x times 6 is negative 18x. Then we do insides. 6 times 4x is 24x. And then we do last times last. 6 times 6 is 36. Okay, if I combine my like terms, I have a negative 12x squared. Negative 18x plus 24x is 6x. And then plus 36. What if I do the exact same problem, but I FOIL first? Am I going to get a different answer? Well, theoretically not. So let's figure this out for sure. So say I start by taking x minus 2 times 4x plus 6. X times 4x is 4x squared. X times 6 is 6x. Negative 2 times 4x is negative 8x. And negative 2 times a positive 6 is a negative 12. Now that reduces to 4x squared minus 2x minus 12. Now you might be asking yourself, Ms. Doran, that doesn't look like the answer I got the other way. Well, don't forget there's that negative 3 hanging out there. We cannot forget to multiply by that negative 3. If I multiply all those by negative 3, negative 3 times 4x squared is negative 12x squared. Negative 3 times a negative 2x is a positive 6x. And negative 3 times a negative 12 is a positive 36, which yields the same answer. Do I expect for you to know both methods? No. Pick whichever one works for you. If you use the method on the left, be careful not to distribute through 2 sets of parentheses. I tend to do it the right method because when I'm multiplying, I have smaller numbers and I don't get larger numbers until the end of the problem. Whereas if you distribute first, you're going to create very large numbers for you to have to add or subtract. Just a few more examples. Okay, this one basically is foiling 2, whether you realize it or not. It's what we call a binomial squared. If I see something like this, the first step I should do is say, okay, x plus 5 quantity squared is x plus 5 times x plus 5. Now you might be saying to yourself, Ms. Doran, that kind of looks like vertex form of a quadratic. Well, that's because it is. Now to do this math problem, I don't do anything with the minus 3 because it doesn't say times negative 3. It says subtract 3 when you're done. So I'm going to FOIL. X times x is x squared. Outsides, x times 5 is 5x. Insides, 5 times x is 5x. And last times last, 5 times 5 is 25. Now that I have completed all that multiplying, then I can subtract 3. So what I'm left with is an x squared. 5x plus 5x is 10x. And then I have 25 minus 3, which is 22. If you look, basically you've taken something from vertex form, and now it's what we called standard form when we learn to graph, or standard form of a quadratic. Let's take another vertex form, and let's make it into standard form. So when I look at this, I see 6 times the quantity, x minus 3, quantity squared plus 10. So step 1, I'm going to write that out twice, noticing I'm not distributing. Because x minus 3 squared means x minus 3, x minus 3. It doesn't just mean you square both numbers. Okay, so now I've got a big math problem. Well, order of operations say I always do parentheses first. So I'm going to FOIL, but you can distribute that 6 at the beginning first if you want into the first set of parentheses. So when I FOIL, I get x times x, which is x squared. Outsides, I get x times negative 3, which is negative 3x. Insides, I get negative 3 times x, which is negative 3x. And then last times last, negative 3 times negative 3 is a positive 9. Now that reduces to x squared minus 6x plus 9. Be careful, we cannot forget that we still need to multiply by that 6. And then when we get done, we also need to add 10 to the math problem. So here we go. Order of operations say now I multiply. So 6 times x squared is 6x squared. 6 times negative 6 is negative 36x. And 6 times 9 is 54. And if I add that 10 onto that 54, it becomes 6x squared minus 36x plus 64. Now, when you did this problem, if you distributed the 6 through first, you should have gotten 6x minus 18 times x minus 3. Nonetheless, once you FOILed it out, you should have had 6x squared minus 36x plus 54. So it doesn't matter which way you do it, you just have to be careful and keep your process the same so you don't mix yourself up. Now the last couple are kind of a little bit of foiling, but it's a little more crazy. There's a few more steps. If you look, I'm going to take a binomial times what we call a trinomial because it has 3 terms. So in order to do this, I'm going to use the basic idea that we are going to FOIL as well. But instead of doing first, outers, inners, and last, I'm just going to start by distributing the x, which is right here, and multiplying it by every single one of my quantities in my second set of parentheses. So x times x is x cubed. X times negative 2x is negative 2x squared. X times 7 is 7x. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back through and multiply by the other value. By multiplying by the 5, I have multiplied every combination I could between these two sets of parentheses. So we're going to do 5 times x squared, which is 5x squared. 5 times negative 2x, which is negative 10x. And 5 times positive 7, which is 35. And if you retrace your steps, you'll notice we've multiplied everything by 7. We've multiplied everything by negative 2x. And we've multiplied everything by x squared. So we have covered every combination. So now my last step is to combine like terms. So I look at my problem, and my largest degree is a third. So I'm going to list that first. So 1x cubed. Then I'm going to combine all my x squareds. Negative 2x squared plus 5x squared is positive 3x squared. After my x squareds, then I'm going to do my x's. So 7x minus 10x is negative 3x. And lastly, I do my constant, which is a plus 35. Okay, one more example and then we are done. Last example combines everything we've done up until now. We're going to FOIL, we're going to distribute. This is one of those problems where you can either distribute the 3 first and then multiply, but you'll have larger numbers at the beginning, or you can wait. I'm just going to FOIL first, or distribute first, and then multiply by the 3. So I'm going to conquer these 2 sets of parentheses right there. So we're going to take x times 2x squared, which is 2x cubed. Then we're going to take x times x, which is 1x squared. Then we're going to take x times negative 5, which is negative 5x. Now we're going to multiply everything by that second value, negative 8. So negative 8 times 2x squared is negative 16x squared. Negative 8 times a positive x is a negative 8x. And negative 8 times a negative 5 is a positive 40. Now I cannot forget that I still have that 3 hanging out that I need to multiply everybody by, since I didn't multiply by it at the beginning. Now the reason why we multiply everything by that is because now everybody's going to get 3 in the problem. Before I do that, I'm going to make my problem a little smaller by writing this in standard form. So I find my largest degree, which is an x cubed, and I list that first, so 2x cubed. Then I combine all my x squareds. 1x squared minus 16x squared is negative 15x squared. Thirdly, I do all my x's. So I have negative 5x and then negative 8x, which is a negative 13x. And then I have a positive 40. My constant on the end. Still need to supersize this by multiplying them all by 3. So I give everybody a 3. 3 times 2x squared is 6x cubed. Sorry, that was a cube, not a squared. 3 times negative 15x squared is negative 45x squared. 3 times a negative 13x is a negative 39x. And 3 times a 40 is 120. And I am done with that math problem. Hopefully this has been an excellent review of how to foil and distribute. I will have a short paper for you to work on once you've completed your notes.